Welcome to South Florida saltwater fishing. I'm Heath, and it's time to get into the bite. All right, folks, welcome to the show. In this episode, we are going to be covering commercial fishing regulations versus recreational fishing regulations. And before we get into this, though, if you want to learn more about fishing, grow as an angler, just see some great and exciting offshore fishing adventures, you can start by hitting the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss a thing. All right, everybody, let's get right into this. So, commercial fishing regulations versus recreational. What do we mean by recreational? Recreational, we are everyday average Joe, weekend warriors, people that go out when we get a chance. We are fishing to bring home basically dinner to our families. Commercial fishermen are those who are doing it as a business. Now, the issue here is everyone who is a recreational fisherman obviously feels as if they get the shaft more often than not. And the major complaint is, oh man, we're out here and we're regulated, and the commercial guys can go and they can catch limitless fish. So what we're going to do here in this episode here is we're actually going to dispel that myth, and you're going to see at the end of the day, even though yes, commercial fishermen can catch a lot more than recreational fishermen are, they are still regulated and they are scrutinized. There's lots of red tape and there's a lot that goes on behind the commercial fishery. So we want to sort of take it and get an understanding that being recreational fishermen, yes, you are regulated, but you might actually be less regulated than what you think versus a commercial fisherman. Okay, so let's take a look at this. First things first, right? To be a recreational fisherman, once a year, you've got to renew your license. It's $17 from the FWC, plus any endorsements you want to add, snook, lobster, whatever there may be. Commercial fishermen, they have to buy a couple of different licenses every year. They have to buy what's called an SPL. They also have to get any licenses such as dolphin, wahoo, snapper, grouper licenses, whatever they are, that they are actually allowed to. You can't just go and say, hey, I want to be a commercial fisherman, let me get this license. It doesn't work that way. You either have to buy a boat that has had that license attached to it, that way you're grandfathered in, or you have to prove that you have experience with catching, kind of working your way up the ladder. You start out with the SPL, catching bait fish and other not so prized fish, and you work towards and you show that you actually want to be a commercial fisherman. Now, the one more important note is that recreational fishermen tend to think that they are more governed, they're more scrutinized, they're more looked at by the FWC and by NOAA, and they get shut down. The reason is if you consider the massive amount of recreational fishermen there are in comparison to the amount of commercial fishermen. So right now I can tell you, I'm going to pull up a statistic and I'll share this with you. And this is going to lead to a couple of points that we can, that are always up for discussion. So we go here, we look at this. I'll collapse this here. In Florida, on average, there's 5,078 commercial fishermen of the 10,000 plus that are registered, the ones that are actually producing and catching. So there's 5,000 people. You've got to think the amount of, you have to consider the amount of recreational fishermen is well in the hundreds of thousands when it comes to that. So consider that when you see closures of seasons and whatnot. All right, now the next thing they say, well, hey, it's unfair. Commercial fishermen seem to have limitless, unlimited catching abilities, and how is it that they shut down things like tilefish for a recreational season versus how do they know how much commercial fishermen are catching? Well, it's quite simple. Commercial fishermen, every time they sell what they catch, which is at a fishery, a wholesaler. They either have to go in, drive their boat in, unload it there, or they have to load it up. Now, when they do sell this, you got to consider that at every fishery, there are people checking. The FWC is there all the time. There's also people from NOAA. There's also people there, not necessarily from the FDA, but there's people there that check the temperature of the fish. So if they bring in a catch and it's not the right temperature, they've got too many fish or stuff like that, because they are regulated, they end up getting massive fines, and it makes it very hard. Again, like I said, they're trying to make a living, so they're playing by the rules. So how do they let everyone know what they're catching? So a fishery, the wholesaler gets what is called a trip ticket, and they fill it out, and it's assigned per boat. So we go right here and you look, it's the wholesaler. They fill out a trip ticket, and this trip ticket has information regarding the boat it was sold to, how much they were sold, how long their trip was, what county it came out of, how deep they went, what gear they used. And so what I want to do here real quick is just show you a sample of what this trip ticket looks like, and you can get an idea. So just bear with me and understand my point here when it comes to it. This is a trip ticket. So the people who they sell it to, they look and they go, okay, hey, here, we're going to fill out all this goodness. And on it, like I said, it's actual time fish, number of days fished, county landed, area fish. Now it also has the licensing information of the people who bought it. So again, when it comes to the wholesaler, the dealer that's buying it, they're not only, they got to report all this. Now, this was a paper trip ticket. Now all of a sudden, it's more than likely it's all electronic. It's all electronic right now. Sorry, funny little quote right there. Yes, the cat is having fun. Anyway, they report it electronically. It's much quicker and all that. Now, the reporting of the fish in the cat, sorry, got me distracted. The reporting of the fish is a state and federal responsibility. They have to work together. And as we go forward, and I'm showing you the regulations that are set forth by the state, it's going to redirect me to the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council. So let's move forward. So now that we've got that understanding, back to my point that I was talking about, the trip ticket. The wholesalers not only they can't buy whatever, they also have to have licenses to buy what specific fish they are: wahoo, dolphin, grouper, lobster, whatever it might be. So the rabbit hole goes really deep when it comes to regulating and red tape regarding the commercial fishery. Whereas recreational fishermen, you got to know your rules. You come here. Let's see, what do? You go to your FWC page. You buy your license from the FWC directly online. You come down, and then you got your recreational fish, right? Let's say you look at cobia. There's a cobia. They want you to know that it's 36 to fork length. Daily bag limit is 1 per person, 2 per vessel, or whichever is less, right? So that's how the recreation goes for recreational fishermen. Those are your regulations. You just got to know it all. And very rarely will you get checked by the FWC. There's just way too many recreational fishers versus commercial fishermen. Every commercial fisherman I've ever talked to says they are checked at least once a year on the sea. They find them. They're required to have larger boat numbers. So the guys with the binoculars, they can see those boat numbers. They can check on them and go, okay, hey, we haven't checked them this year. Let's go get them. And if they're not checked out on the ocean, they're going to check them when they pull into port and they go to sell their catch. So that is how that works out. So that's one of the areas where I'm saying recreational people, yeah, you do get the shaft sometimes, but not as much as those commercial guys do. You just got to consider that, But then again, right, if you're running it as a business, obviously that's the trade-off. There is going to be more red tape. Recreational people, tend to not do so much damage as the commercial guys do, even though you would think so. So let's get into this real quick. I want to show you. Everybody thinks commercial guys are not really, they don't have regulations. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pull up the 2020-24 preliminary South Atlantic commercial landings. Now remember, most of the commercial regulations is governed by NOAA. So we're going to look here. We're on this page, right? 2024 South Atlantic commercial landing. So what this is this shows what is called the ACL, the annual catch limit. So basically, once a commercial limit of weight, tonnage, or poundage is caught, that season closes, right? So let's look, for example, let's start with dolphin right here. We've got dolphin. Dolphin, the annual catch limit, which is this third row over here. The annual catch limit is 1,719,950 pounds, 953 pounds. That will change year by year. Now, if we look at the next one, this graphic right here is from January 1st to December 31st, and it was updated on April 2nd. So our information that we're going here is a few days old, and it may lag behind as trip tickets get turned in from the state to the Fed. However, it's not that far behind because, like I said, most of them now are electronically delivered. So our dolphin, currently they only have barely over 1,000 pounds turned in of this 1 million pound annual catch limit for it to be shut down. So will it hit that limit? It's highly unlikely. That's a far-fetched number, right? But as you can see, the dolphin season for the commercial guys has not turned on yet. Let's look also another one here that we'll look at, which is something that people are getting into, deep dropping, right? Recreational season of deep dropping is closed for golden tilefish and for blue line tilefish. So if we look here at our golden tilefish, the season, if you're doing long lining or hook and line, catching them, the season is still open. Our season was closed February 19th or February 29th, I think, after a short 2 months of only being able to fish for golden tilefish, yet the golden tilefish season is still open for commercial guys. Now let's look at their annual catch limits of 108,000 pounds for hooks and lines, 324,000, almost 325,000 pounds for long line. Of that, we've got 25,000. So just over 25% or almost 25% has been caught on hook and line, and 182,757 pounds has been caught by long line. So that's very interesting because, let me shut that down right here. This is where everybody's complaint comes in, or they go, wait, commercial guys got shut down. So let's check that out and try and figure out if there's any sense going on here, or if it's just, is it a fishery that they want to hold for sale? So NOAA Fishery shuts it down February 29th. The annual catch limit. Now here they don't go by poundage, they go by fish. They said golden tilefish predicts that the landings of 2,635 fish will be caught by February 29th, which passed us. It sort of, bent everybody the wrong way, but it is what it is. That's a regulation. And again, this is set by NOAA. These are the people who set those federal regulations. And golden tilefish is a federal waters fish anyway. It's out deep. So here we've got a contradiction, right? The recreational guys were shut down while the commercial guys are allowed to still keep on plugging away, and they're going to catch many more than 2,000 fish. Let's go back to our graphic showing the annual catch limits. And keep moving on from there, right? So golden tilefish, hook and line, 108,000 golden tilefish, long line, 324, almost 325,000. So, and their season is still open. Okay, so there we have a big discrepancy, right? Let's look at something like mutton snapper. Mutton snapper. Season's still open, recreational season isn't. Now, if you look here real carefully, there is a 111,354 pound annual catch limit, of which 10,244 have already been caught. So there we go. Another thing, that limit might be caught. A lot of mutton snapper commercial fishing is done spear fishing, not really done by hook and line. Let's look at this one. Wahoo. Wahoo is also regulated. 70,000 pounds of wahoo per trip. 10,000 of it has already been caught. So the wahoo commercial fishing season will come to an end. Now, you've got to understand also that there are different years, different time frames for when a fishing season starts and ends. Sometimes the fishing season starts in February. Sometimes it starts in June and runs through the following June. It doesn't always start January 1st and ends December 31st. So commercial fishing seasons are very interesting, and you just have to kind of know it. And you got to know where to search this stuff up too. But also, let's look at other things where people say, oh no, they can fish all year round and catch whatever they want. No, they can't. Let's look right here. Red grouper, red snapper, scamp grouper, shallow water grouper, whatever that may mean. There's a bunch of seasons that are currently closed. So this red grouper right here jives with the recreational season. They can't go and catch red grouper right now. Gag grouper, which is also closed currently, is closed for commercial operations also. So there's a little bit of sense going on here. And also another thing as we move along, I want to say that when it comes to size limits, right? Recreational fishermen, let's say for a dolphin, you can catch a 20-inch dolphin, lip to fork in the tail. It's the same thing for commercial guys. So let me show you right here. Let's take a look, right? Let's look at the FWC for recreational real quick. Check out a few things and we'll move forward from there. Recreational fishing. Here we go. So we've got, let's look at our dolphin fish, right? Mahi. Fork length 25. There's in the Gulf, there's no limit to the size, but it's a rare fish. And that's state waters too. So state waters run out 9 miles in the Gulf, and to get into water deep enough for a Mahi in the Gulf, you got to go out like 60 miles. Atlantic state waters, South Atlantic waters, off Florida, 20-inch length, 5 fish per person or 30 fish per vessel, whichever is less. Okay. So that's our dolphin. That's a very common fish. Let's also look at something like king mackerel. King mackerel, 24-inch fork length, 3 per harvester in the Gulf. On the state waters, Atlantic, 2 per harvester. Doesn't say anything about a per vessel, so it's 2 per harvester. So if you've got 4 people, you can go home with 8. Back to, let's look at our reef fish and check out our tilefish, right? Golden tilefish. Federal, Atlantic, the season says it's open, but the Gulf, it's year round. Atlantic reopens January 1st. So they have updated that. However, there's no size limit. Your daily bag limit is 1 per person or within the 3 grouper tilefish aggregate. Let's look at blue line tilefish. Same thing, 2 per person within the 3 fish grouper aggregate. So you're limited on catching tilefish, and they're grouped in with grouper, whereas the commercial fishermen have their catch limits. Some of them are regulated by catches per day. Other ones of them are not. Okay, so there we go. There's a few fish that you wonder about. Now I want to show you something very interesting. We went back, we'll go back here. I want to show you something interesting where everybody thinks they're getting a shaft. Check out cobia. Cobia, right? 1 per person or 2 per vessel. Okay. Now, check this out. Here's a fish where it is not at all. I'm going to open up the commercial fishing guide regulations by the FWC, and we're going to get deeper into this. Let's look at cobia, the same exact fish. Check this out. Cobia, 36 inches to the fork. So the same length. Like I said, commercial fishing regulations when it comes to lengths of fish are the exact same as a recreational fisherman. Now, look at this right here. For commercial, this is the FWC's commercial fishing regulations. Cobia, trip bag limit, 1 per day, 2 per vessel, whichever is less. Not at all worth it to be a commercial fisherman fishing cobia. Okay, now on to my next thing where I want to show you that most of these fish here in the commercial regulations from the FWC are handed over to the feds, being NOAA. So check this out. If we go to dolphin, same thing, 20 inches, trip bag limit, none. So they can come in with unlimited as long as, when they go to sell them, they get they're the right temperature and all that goodness that applies to commercially selling fish. Over here you see permits for fishing for them. Contact NOAA Fisheries Southeast Regional Office. Also, if you want to see for the permit that gets you that. So dolphin, yes, same size, but they're unlimited. Does it seem unfair that you can get 10 per person or 30 per boat? Recreational, yes, hey, it is what it is. But again, I said, if you consider how many commercial fishermen there are that go for dolphin versus how many recreational fishermen there are that go for them when they start running, we're talking hundreds of thousands versus maybe a few thousand, maybe, if that. So the unlimited number that they can catch on a trip is not that significant when you compare the 10 or so that are you may get from hundreds of thousands of recreational fishermen. So just consider that. Now, let's look at another fish. Let's see if we go for tilefish right here. So this is what I was talking about, where tilefish, all these fish are going to refer you to the feds, which is the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council right here. So if I want to find out my commercial regulations, other than it must remain whole until landed, and the gear is also, I'll go back to the dolphin real quick and show you. It talks about what gear, allowable gear, hook and line, long line gear, federal waters only, and spearing. Okay, let's go back to our tilefish. So if I click on this link right here to find my limits and seasons, it refers me straight to the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council, which is governed by NOAA. So, and it brings me to the whole list. It doesn't just bring me to tilefish. Again, we already looked up tilefish. We know that golden tilefish is still open. Now let's talk about blue line tilefish, because we're going to have a short season too. Now, on the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council, they give you recreational and commercial. But remember, this is for federal waters. So recreational fishing in federal waters is the limit of 2 with a bag limit of 2. And remember, they're in the grouper aggregate. So that's that for that part of it. Commercial fishing, they are limited per trip for blue line tilefish, 100 pounds gutted weight trip. Now they have 117,148 pounds, of which 10% has already been harvested. And remember, they are in the snapper grouper, so they have to have this license when it comes to commercial. Now let's look and see go back to golden tilefish and see where they're at on that one. Golden tilefish commercially, they can catch 4,000 pounds. But this is the long line. Remember, there's two different ways to catch it. They're allowing them to use long line and hook and line. So long line, they can get 4,000 pounds gutted. There's 325, almost 1,000-pound weight limit. Of that weight limit, 56% of it has already been harvested. So if they keep going at the rate they're going, they're looking at getting a fishery shut down within, before the end of the year. Now, if we're talking hook and line, 500 pounds versus 4,000 pounds. So you can see the difference where we're going with you can see where we're going with this when it comes to weight limit differences. The hook and line is 108,000 pounds and only 23% of it. So obviously the long liners, when it comes to golden tilefish, are on a roll, and the guys catching them by hook and line are not. So I hope some of this is helping make some sense. Let's look at another fish when it comes to commercial. Kingfish, king mackerel. We said you're allowed 2 per boat, right? And if you got a couple folks on there, 3 or 4 people fishing, you can get 2 per person. And it's unlimited like that. So if you've got a bunch of people on your boat, you're safe to go, but it becomes a hassle. How many fish can you realistically take home and cook? Let's look at king mackerel when it comes to commercial fishing. So here in Florida, right, if you're in federal waters, you've got 3 bag limit per person. Same length, 24 foot. Now, commercial. Let's look at commercial. Commercial fishing is interesting because there's all sorts of different areas. North Carolina, South Carolina, north of Flagler, Volusia line, south of Volusia. So this is the area where we would be interested in if we're talking about South Florida. They have a 75 fish quantity trip limit. King mackerel is 4 million pounds of king mackerel can be caught commercially this year. Now the fishing year goes from March 1st and ends in September, right? But there's 2 different seasons. There's season 1 and season 2. If we look down here, season 1 is March 1st through September 30th. That 4 million pounds of kingfish is for those 6 months. The second season is October 1st. So they can fish for them year round, which is the same thing recreationally. But however, they got a 75 fish limit, no poundage, 75 fish. Okay, so if we go back to our FWC commercial fishing, let me pull that up right here and let's see what they say there. Again, it's going to bring me back to it will bring me back to the feds. Let me show you real quick here. Again, while we talk about king mackerel, right? So here we are on our commercial fishing for FWC mackerel, king mackerel. There we are. Same thing, right? Trick bag limits. It just says you've got to see the feds. So here, pull up. Nope, that's not what we wanted to pull up. These are trick bag limits. See this. Now it's complicated. You just got to visit the commercial regulations page, 24 to inches. So it gets, here it is. Yeah, again, trip limits, hook and line. See the federal CFR opens up the code of regulations. But here they are. It actually labels it instead of sending you to the feds, because this is just one of the things that FWC does, is sometimes they label it here, other times they redirect you, like you saw with the tilefish, because there's a couple of different things here. Palm Beach to Tri-County area, as you can see, the 75 fish limit. it will decrease. Now, this, interestingly enough here, the vessel trip limit will decrease to 50 fish if 75% of the season of season 1, which is March through September 31st. So if 75% of that 4 million fish is reached, then the trip limit drops to 50 fish. So as you can see, the commercial guys are regulated. They do get nailed sometimes, and a lot harder. They're scrutinized every time they go out, especially when they come back in to sell their fish. And I just wanted to make this point because, you know, recreational fishermen, which I am, which most people that watch the show are, we get it that we feel as if we're the ones who always get shafted. And the deal is that you got to consider per capita how many recreational fishermen there are versus how many commercial fishermen there are for just a specific fish. So, which is not that many. It's a few thousand in each area. So compared to the well over 100,000 recreational fishermen. So your catch limits versus commercial limits when you are a recreational guy, it's the playing field actually is fairly leveled out, and it just seems unfair when you're into getting a fish and the season gets shut down, or regulations like dolphin. It was 10 per person, 60 per boat a few years back. Then it got cut down to 5 per person, 30 per boat. And concerning dolphin, my prediction is that the next regulation that's going to happen is the size limit will go from 20 inches to 24 inches. When that will happen, I'm not sure, but I would say that it's going to happen. And you got to consider also, commercial guys don't have a way to circumvent getting their catches not reported. Recreational guys, and we all know them guys that are out there that catch and take home undersized fish, maybe 1 or 2 fish too many, because the thought process is, well, hey man, I spent money on bait, gas, everything. I didn't come out here to get skunked and catch nothing. I'm keeping that 18-inch dolphin. Or, you know, and, oh man, we're doing great. I'm going to keep the 6th dolphin instead of letting it go. So that is my thought process when it comes to recreational versus commercial fishing regulations. Yes, the bag limit reduced. Listen, Jerome, I agree with you. I'm for it. I've never been one guy to really be like, okay, I want to limit out. Who in their right minds? You know what happened? You know what? Getting 30 dolphin on the boat and what the cleaning process is to do it. So when I can actually tell a quick story. In the 80s, I remember 2 specific times when I was growing up that we caught over 100 dolphins. And you're talking 5 or 6 people on the boat. We literally cleaned fish for 3 days after that. So the answer is when it comes to these, the quotas and all that good stuff, do you really need to limit out? Okay, sure. If you're really going out and you're feeding your friends and family, sure. But the whole I need 100 fish on my boat is a little, at that point, you got to say, hey, what am I doing this for? Versus commercial fishermen who says, hey, I got a boat, fuel bait, I got young children at home, my car's broke down, who Lord knows what that they got going on that they're trying to handle. And yet, if you look at all this information that I just gave you, they are well more looked at than any recreational fisherman ever will be. All right, folks, we're going to get ready and pull the plug on this one. Hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little bit something about the differences between commercial fishing regulations, saltwater fishing regulations. If you have any questions as time goes on, please post them in the comment section. I will get you some answers because I do know commercial fishermen as well as a ton of recreational fishermen. And if I don't know the answer, like I said, I can get it for you. Now, if you're interested where I got any of this information from, the links to the FWC, the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council, all those links are going to be in the description. So you can go on ahead and look up the information if you're curious and you want to see, find out a little bit more about the differences. All right, folks, till next time, South Florida saltwater fishing, going wherever the cool wind takes us.